If you want to guarantee yourself a spot in the fantasy football playoffs, this is the perfect video you could ever find because I'll be giving you a list of the players we need to be buying low on that are league winning. And make sure to stick around to the end of the video because I'm going to be dropping a list of the players that we should be selling high. So if you have them on your team, watch till the end. You'll know what to do with them. And if you get a trade package with them coming to your team, don't accept it. But you guys know I hate to waste people's time in YouTube videos. So the very first player we're going to go ahead and get started with is Cooper Kupp. And this is a no-brainer to me, but people are worried about him. Everybody and their mother has started to complain about this dude and start being scared about him and his fantasy point production. He's had 6 points in 3 back-to-back games. Not ideal, of course, but there is one simple answer to this problem that will heal all of your worries, and that is that Matthew Stafford should be coming back after the bye week. If we look at Cooper Kupp's chart, his inefficiency has started directly when Matthew Stafford went out and the backup quarterback came in, and he's continued to struggle. But we can tell that this is not a Cooper Kupp issue, this is a Brett issue, a backup quarterback issue. I'm not moving Cooper Kupp down my rankings whatsoever. I'm not worried about him, but this creates a perfect buy low opportunity for us to come in and grab some value. Chances are fantasy managers that have Cooper Kupp don't have the best record because they had to wait some weeks before Cooper Kupp was healthy in the beginning of the season, and then he had some dud weeks, and it's just a whole disaster. He has a pretty decent rest of season schedule, and his fantasy playoff schedule is great as well. So if that interests you, send a couple trade offers, do what you can, see what the manager wants for him. Some potential trade packages you could use to get Cooper Kupp on your team is any combination of a sell high guy like Tank Dell, Deontay Johnson with DeAndre Hopkins, or Adam Thielen straight up. You got a lot of options here. But if you need more videos like this in your life, make sure to be subscribed. It takes 2 seconds. I know some of you guys aren't, but it is league winning advice, and you've already found the videos on YouTube, so you might as well stick around for all the rest of the ones for the remainder of the season. And let's get us into that playoff championship win. So just hit that follow button while you can. But Davante Adams is the next guy that we need to be buying low on, and again, this is a guy I am not worried about. We cannot be worried about Davante Adams. I know this is one of the scariest and weirdest situations. He's had double-digit fantasy points once in the past 5 weeks. Jimmy G is injured. They got O'Connell now starting, but better days are ahead. Last week he saw a 25% team target share with O'Connell at quarterback, and he only threw 25 passes. The reason that's important is because he's still seeing his regular target volume, and I'm not worried about that because that is his regular target share, and O'Connell only threw 25 passes a game. That is going to go up, so obviously the opportunities and targets are going to be down a little bit. But after this week's matchup against the Jets, it is going to be nearly impossible to trade for him because of the matchups he has coming up, and let me explain which ones these are. He's coming into matchups that the Raiders are going to have to throw in whether they want to or not. They get the Dolphins, then they get the Chiefs, the Vikings, the Chiefs again, the Chargers into the fantasy playoffs. He's still a wide receiver 1, a top 5 wide receiver in the NFL. You have to believe that he can kick it back into gear. He was a second round pick for most of us, and we really shouldn't be able to get him at wide receiver 2 fantasy value right now. And obviously I know he's way too far gone to reach that ADP that we were drafting him at in the beginning of the season, but that is exactly why he's a buy low, because he will increase some value when this offense starts passing and he gets back into it. And worst case scenario, you bought low, so you didn't give up much for him, and he's a decent point scorer anyways. Another must buy player, and this one is probably my personal favorite, is Marquise Brown. And if you've been around this page for a minute, you know I've been talking about him for a while, so let me get into it for you new people. Now obviously we do have to set the stage. He has had some bad games as of recent and has looked like he's been slowing down and cooling off. He's had 1 double-digit game in the past 4, and that was thanks to a touchdown, but he's had a pretty good target share over the course of this season. You can check his stats here. Like Davante Adams, they're in a bit of a similar situation. Now, obviously they're not in the same tier of wide receiver, but fantasy points don't always equal fantasy value. He's had a pretty tough schedule so far, facing the Browns and the Ravens, who are both top 5 in points allowed to opposing wide receivers. Not very good, not very fantasy point friendly, but he also gets a matchup against Falcons this week coming up. But we have to remember that King Kyler Murray is coming back into this offense. He might start a bit slow, but he is going to be a top 10 quarterback, and Marquise Brown was a top 10 wide receiver last year with no DeAndre Hopkins and Kyler Murray. We cannot forget that happened. We were all calling him a league winner. He has a bit of a tough stretch coming into the fantasy football playoffs, but the best schedule for wide receivers in the playoffs against the 49ers, Bears, and Eagles, all games where they're going to have to pass a lot in. Again, he still averaged a good target share, almost 10 targets a game with bad quarterback play, and now he gets Kyler Murray, which is going to give him a little bit more consistency. We can get him on our team for any combination of Tank Dell, Tyler Lockett, or even attach a guy like Zach Moss or Jalen Warren with Michael Thomas or JSN to get him on our squad. Now, there isn't very many times ever in the history of football where we can buy low on Travis Kelce, but when we can, we have to be swinging for the fence and just send a trade offer to see what the manager thinks, and now is that time. Travis Kelce had 11 fantasy points in week 8 and 4 last week, by far his worst game of the season, and now he's coming into his bye week. So if we can tank his bye week, which again shouldn't be very hard for the tight end position because most people's tight ends are already pretty bad, so you can just get one on the waivers and not take too much of a hit. You have to be trying and just sending a trade offer. Most likely you're only really going to be able to trade another top tight end for him because the guy with Travis Kelce probably doesn't have that good of a backup. So guys like like Evan Ingram, TJ Hawkinson, Mark Andrews straight up even are great options. And there really isn't much I have to say to convince you to get him on your roster. This is the Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce show in the Chiefs. Nobody else gets consistent targets. He is miles better than the tight end 2 in fantasy so far this season, and he's averaging just under 10 targets a game. And quarterback and tight end are the two positions that are the hardest to upgrade in fantasy football because there's not very much depth. So again, if you could package some of the other top tight ends like Evan Ingram, like TJ Hawkinson, Darren Waller, even if people will even want him because he's on IR, but George Kittle with guys like Jacoby Myers, Chuba Hubbard, James Conner, guys like that should be able to get him to your squad. But everybody's favorite part of the video, some running backs we need to be buying low on, and the first one is one that everybody is panicking on. Again, I don't understand why, is Kenneth Walker. But you know what? Maybe I can understand. Over the past 2 weeks, he's had under a 50% snap share and under double-digit carries, 8 and 9. And this is a huge downgrade and fall off of what we've seen in the beginning of the season. And now we get Zach Charbonnet getting 4 and 5 carries in those 2 games, kind of splitting work, but not really. Let me explain. Everybody's kind of jumping way too far to conclusions. In that Week 8 matchup, they faced the Browns, which are one of the hardest teams to run against in fantasy football. They allow the 5th least points to opposing running backs this season, and you're just not going to be able to run on them very well. It's more of a given. Then in Week 9, they follow that up with a negative matchup against the Ravens, where they go on to get blown out and have no run game for the second straight game. We already knew that Zach Charbonnet would have a role in this offense as more of a change of pace back. When the Seahawks are in more of a negative game script, they're going to be using both of these running backs more because they're playing from behind. But none of this should be worrying you and taking you away from Kenneth Walker because he's been dealing with injury for these past 2 weeks through these games. And all of those things combined just adds to a regular running back volatility that we get to see every once in a while when some bad things match up together. He is still the clear goal line back. He gets a bulk of the usage. He does have a pretty tough schedule for fantasy running backs coming up, but that's part of the reason why we buy low, and his value is going to be lower for that. But this is a guy that we can even try to short. He gets a great game against the Washington run defense with no Chase Young or Montez Sweat, which could be a good fantasy week for him. And then the Rams after that, you could look to buy him and then sell him, flip him really quick for a better running back before his schedule gets really tough again. But you can get him on your squad for guys like Raheem Mostert or Ramondre Stevenson, or combinations of guys like James Cook and Courtland Sutton. And the next running back we need to be sending some trade offers for, and one that I absolutely love, is Isiah Pacheco. And I've been talking about him for a couple weeks now. Again, he got 6 points in back-to-back weeks coming into his Week 10 bye. This is a buy low opportunity. He won't be playing this week. That makes it even easier to get him because the owner probably doesn't want to sit through that bye week, and you can do it depending on your schedule, of course. Now, yes, he only got 6 carries in last week's matchup in Germany, but he still dominated the snap and usage share. This was the best game of his season statistic-wise for sure. Let me explain. He saw 70% of the snaps, 76% of the rush attempts, and 54% of the routes out of the backfield. For those of you that don't know, that is almost a workhorse back. He saw more usage and more receiving routes out of the backfield than Jerick McKinnon. He's 12th in yards per touch and 5th in running back efficiency. He's been an efficient running back in all of his NFL career, and it really does help that he's on a great offense in the Chiefs because if you're on the field, you get more offensive opportunities, more goal line opportunities, and red zone scoring and receiving opportunities. He also has one of the best remaining schedules for fantasy running backs, and his fantasy playoff schedule is even better. If you can get him on your team because of the low fantasy points he's been scoring in his bye week this week for guys like Christian Kirk and Gabe Davis, selling high on a guy like Noah Brown, or again a guy like Ramondre Stevenson and Alexander Madison, most definitely take a swing on him and secure your wins for the future. But real quick, if you're just looking to buy low on players that have good fantasy schedules, the best guys here are going to be Devon Achane, Garrett Wilson, DJ Moore, or Devonta Smith. Those are your best guys. But moving down to the promised list of players we need to be selling high on, get them off your roster or don't take them in if you're getting a trade offer. And I'm going to rapid fire these. The first guy here is James Cook. Yes, Leonard Fournette is here. He's going to start getting his snap share now. He's already operating in a 3-man running back by committee. It's only going to get worse. Sell high on him. He's in a good offense. Some people might still like him. On that note, get Courtland Sutton off of your roster. Jerry Jeudy is here to stay. He's going to be the wide receiver 1 he was last year, and there is just absolutely no way he can keep up this clip of touchdowns he's been getting for the remainder of the season. As the weather gets colder and as Javonte Williams becomes more and more of a workhorse running back, they're going to lean more on the run game. And this isn't really a sell high, but I'd also look to see what you can get for Adam Thielen. This offense doesn't pass a whole lot, and you can get him for some top 5, top 10 wide receiver options. I would get them. And like I hinted to earlier, we can sell high on guys like Noah Brown and Tank Dell, 2 guys that came off insanely high yardage and touchdown games from CJ Stroud's 500 passing yard performance. Obviously, CJ Stroud is a very pass-heavy quarterback in a pass-heavy scheme. That's going to continue, but 500 passing yards a game is just absurd. That won't keep happening, but Robert Woods is going to come back, which is going to make Tank Dell and Noah Brown the wide receiver 2, 3, even 4. So you're going to lower their value just a little bit. Get them off your roster. Package them with another guy. You probably can't get much for them straight up. And also go ahead and trade Gus Edwards if you have him. He's in a 3-man running back by committee, and the come up of Keaton Mitchell is only going to make it worse. He saw 9 carries, 100+ yards. He went crazy. Is he going to get an instant 40% snap share all of a sudden? no, but if you're splitting a backfield 3 ways, your ceiling and floor is already really capped, and he's had some pretty good performances over the past few weeks. I'd also look to sell Jacoby Myers. He really hasn't been that good with Aiden O'Connell. He actually hurts him a good amount. Davante Adams does have a 25% team target share, and that takes a bulk of O'Connell's passing volume. His floor and ceiling is going to be lower, and he as well has had some great games strung together over the past few weeks, so sell him if you can. But that is going to finish off this video of the players you need to be buying low. If you've made it this far in the video, I will see you guys in the video tomorrow, and I appreciate you guys sticking through.